Today we're looking at every single anime that has ever existed and ranking them based on how well they would perform as a D&D campaign. So the way I'm going to rank this then is going to be based off of three things. The first one is going to be the world or premise of the anime itself and how well that applies to D&D. We're also going to take into account the story that is told. So does the story fit? If it's just like about a solo individual, nothing else, maybe it doesn't work as well. And then thirdly, we're going to take into account the characters and the power system and powers and abilities they have access to. So if everyone is magical and can cast spells, then we're maybe going to have to change it slightly. It's going to maybe be fitting in A or B tier because everyone's going to have to play a spellcaster. Does that make sense? I guess that makes sense. So to give you an example of how this is going to work, I'm going to show you an anime card. You can try to guess what the anime is at home. It's Pikachu! And let me know at the end of the video if you have gotten them all right. We're going to do 50 in this video. We're not going to do all of them. That would be insane, but I needed to get your attention so that you would watch the video. We're gonna start with the biggest IP in the world, and if you haven't gotten it already, this is Pokemon. Pokemon is incredibly mid. It's meh, it's fine. The thing is with Pokemon, why it doesn't really work as a D&D premise, you have so many Pokemon to keep track of. The idea is that you have a party of 6 Pokemon. You're going around and you're fighting gyms. Not only is just fighting constantly incredibly boring, but you also have so many monsters and stats and like characters and moving parts to keep track of that it just doesn't work. It only really works in a video game. But I have, and many other people have also made a lot of homebrew to make Pokemon possible. There are certain ways that you can make it work, but ideally I think it only really works as a one-shot. So we're gonna put it right there where it belongs in the tier, because I think it could work possibly with a different system other than D&D. It can work, but ideally you just want to do like a one shot or maybe like a 6 series shot. What does work a little better than Pokemon is this one, Digimon. Because Digimon, you only have one Digimon to keep track of, and you are a child looking after a big monster that can get bigger and stronger. So instead of you leveling up, your monster is leveling up. I've actually made a whole skill tree for raising and creating your own Digimon or Pokemon in D&D. If you want to check it out, I'll link it below. But we're going to put Digimon up here at B tier. I think it's worth the effort. I think there's a lot of homebrew you need to do, but I've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So Digimon can go right here. Next up, we are looking at the biggest anime of all time. And I think One Piece, very fittingly, I don't really have to talk about it too much because so many people have played One Piece campaigns that I know. There is live One Piece campaigns out there. I have made skill trees as well and homebrew to make One Piece work in your games. There's very little that you need to really change to make One Piece work in a D&D setting. Maybe you need to limit some sort of powers and things, or get your hands on one of the many homebrew that are out there for Devil Fruits and potentially Haki, but you can reflavor a lot of powers and abilities in D&D to fit One Piece. So we are going to put One Piece right here in A tier. It's not quite S tier because you do need to do a bit of homebrewing, but there's a lot of stuff out there that can easily make that process super seamless for you. So One Piece up here in A tier. Coming up next is one of my favorite anime that has blown me away completely. This is Dungeon Meshi. Dungeon Meshi is a fantasy anime very much based in like a D&D world where they are going down into a mega dungeon and eating every monster that they see along the way. So they don't have to spend money on supplies before they go down. I won't tell you anything really about the show if you haven't watched it, but basically you are cooking and eating monsters in Dungeons and Dragons, and I actually have a Kickstarter out right now, right this moment, that is an entire book that helps you cook and eat any single monster in Dungeons and Dragons. So not only do you have immediate access to turning Dungeon Meshi into a campaign for your games, but it is such a perfect setting. And there's so little that you need to change. You have every kind of class in D&D in the world of Dungeon Meshi. You've got clerics, you've got fighters, you've got everything, you got rogues. So I will say that Dungeon Meshi goes right up here in S tier. And if you want to play a Dungeon Meshi game, do check out my Kickstarter right now. The links are in the description. It is live. We're already halfway through funding the Kickstarter. So if you want to check it out, I don't know, just be really cool if you did. So now we've got S tier, we've got A tier, we've got B tier, we've got C tier. Now we need an example of D tier. An anime that just will not work for Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe any TTRPG really, and is just better off if you just watch the anime, or in this case, even just get a spin top and play Beyblades yourself at home. Beyblades is next on our list, and it's going right here in D tier because it just doesn't work. It's guys with spin tops, with little dragons and monsters that come out, but they don't really do anything. At the end of the day, it's just two spin tops hitting each other. There's no way you can make that mechanically interesting at all. So it's going down here. The anime is fun enough. I think it's probably pretty trashy at this stage. I haven't watched it in a long time. But as far as my brain goes, I think D tier suits Beyblades well enough. But you might be thinking, what goes down in poopy tier? What belongs at the bottom of our rank? Let's get an example of what anime would belong at the bottom of poopy tier. And I don't know, this is a tricky one, but this is the ultimate symbol of Death Note. I hate Death Note. I think it sucks. And it's for kind of like teenage angsty kids who are learning about morality for the first time. And it's a great way to skew your perception on what is good and bad. It's super boring. I can't recommend it. It goes down to poopy tier. If you try to put this into a campaign, it's just about one dude with a book. If you don't know what Death Note is, I will explain Death Note. So Death Note is about a guy who finds a book. And if he writes a name in here while picturing the face of that person will die. He can describe as well how they die in the book as well. If he doesn't describe how they die, they just die of a heart attack after like 40 seconds or something like that. The whole premise is a cat and mouse chase between this teenage boy who has this book and this detective. And as much as I love a good cat and mouse chase kind of show, Death Note, it's not going to ever work in a campaign, even if you had a whole party and they each had a Death Note, which also just seems ridiculous because Death Notes are like super rare. How does everyone have a Death Note? Or even if they're sharing one Death Note between themselves. But even then, I don't even know if people can use it. I think if someone else tries to use your Death Note when you have a Death Note, they just die. So it wouldn't even work. One person would just have to have the Death Note and be the main character. And it's so overpowered. You have an insta-kill kind of book, and there's no way you can make that interesting for very long. So it goes down here in poopy tier. There's no way it can work as a premise here, and it's just a bad show. I think it sucks, and many of you will disagree. All right, coming up next, we got this very pretty looking one. This is Sailor Moon. I actually don't know a whole bunch about Sailor Moon, so I had to watch a bunch of videos on Sailor Moon too before I could actually add this in here. But I felt like Sailor Moon had to place somewhere on here. And I think B or C tier is pretty good for Sailor Moon. There is a TTRPG, I think it's called Monster Hearts, which would work really well, I think, for this premise. The thing is though, there are so many TTRPGs out there that can better support this than D&D. One example is Break, for example. You can literally be a battle princess in Break. There is a class dedicated to basically being Sailor Moon. Ideally, for a better experience, it is C tier. You gotta go for a completely different system to make this work. But B tier also is pretty cool, I think, for this one as well. B tier, you can make it work as long as you homebrew the game a lot. I think it can totally work. Coming up next, we have Dan to Dan, which is such a cool anime. It has absolutely blown me away again. The premise is you've got one guy who believes in aliens and another girl who believes in spirits, and they try to prove each other wrong. The guy goes to a haunted place. The gal goes to a kind of like an alien spot where people have seen aliens before, and she gets telekinetic kind of powers and he gets spirit powers, and now they do just a bunch of weird adventures together, and it's just so much fun, and it's kind of got a bit of romance in there. Eventually a whole party is formed. You have like 4 or 5 members of this party who all start working together to take out a monster of the week. And I think it's a really good show. I think it's perfect for a D&D setting. So I'm gonna put it right here in hype tier. The powers and abilities in it can easily be translated to D&D mechanics, and it would be such a cool and fun show to play with your friends. We got Dragon Ball Z. If you don't know what Dragon Ball Z is, it's a fighting anime with big muscly macho people who can fly around and shoot lasers out of their hands. And you could say like, yeah, cool, Dragon Ball Z, you got like, you know, magic spells, and that's the laser beams, and also you're really buff, so you just have really high strength or something like that. Thing is, everyone's just really strong. Everyone shoots laser beams in Dragon Ball. And it is basically just a really high level campaign where you are far beyond level 20 at this stage, which is why I think it should go down in C tier, actually. I think it's Dragon Ball Z specifically is such a high-powered fantasy that it just kind of goes beyond D&D mechanics at that stage. I think there are other systems out there probably. Let me know in the comments which ones would work best for Dragon Ball Z, but it's not D&D in the end of the day. It's just too hard to manage. And also it's not entertaining. You know, usually it's just like one strong guy versus another strong guy if you want to like be true to the story. Or it's usually a much lower level party who are just trying to stay alive until the really strong member of the party shows up, which is Goku most of the time. Goku will eventually show up once everyone is dead and then take out the bad guy, easy peasy, no problem. So I think Dragon Ball Z specifically goes in C. However, Dragon Ball, I think, would make for a really good setting because things are much lower level. Every character in Dragon Ball could fit a certain class. You've got Yamcha, who could kind of be a rogue. You've got Bulma, who could be, I guess, like an artificer. And then you've got Goku, who could just be a monk. It is a very clean, easy game to run. You could run quite a low level campaign with this, and you're going on little funny adventures, gathering just MacGuffins, and eventually trying to make a wish at the very end of the campaign. So I think it should go right here in hype tier. I think you still would need to make a few tweaks to make it work, maybe add a few kind of homebrew monsters, but even then I think it would be kind of like high hype tier. So I'm gonna put it like between the two tiers. Going back to overpowered anime where one person is kind of just stronger than everyone else, we have One Punch Man, which is about a guy who can kill every single monster with one punch. And I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a pretty crummy campaign setting. I mean, the Hero League is kind of cool where everyone's like a hero or superhero all fighting monsters and things, but none of them have like particularly interesting abilities necessarily. You got a few people up there like who are higher and things like that. It's a bit of a monster of a week kind of scenario, but there are TTRPGs that can cover this much better. Anything superhero related is kind of gonna go down here in C tier, because there is it Monsters and Mutants, I think is the name of the TTRPG, that is basically a superhero TTRPG, which would suit One Punch Man very well, but also because it's a modern setting, because the main story is just about this one dude who can kill everything in one punch, there isn't much depth to it to make it into a campaign. So here it goes in C tier. One of my favorite shows of all time growing up, I loved Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the bomb. It's not a good show by any means, but it also is. It's also like the best show. The premise is a little boy finds this Millennium Puzzle, which is like an ancient Egyptian artifact, and it allows him to swap between his own persona and the persona of an ancient pharaoh who was a king of games. And he goes around challenging people to a children's card game in these things called shadow games. And if you lose the shadow game, you lose your soul. So if you lose the children's card game, you lose your soul forever. But the whole thing is, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game in itself. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game. So either watch the anime or play the game. So it's gonna go down here in D tier. Doesn't make any sense to make a campaign based around it. Just play Yu-Gi-Oh! Coming up next, we have Gundam. Gundam, or just any mech anime, goes straight here into C tier because you're piloting robots, and there is actually a TTRPG called Lancer that is all about mech campaigns. It uses 4th edition rules, so you're still technically kind of using altered D&D rules, but they are specifically designed and tailored for campaigns that are about being in a mech and building your own mech and things like that. So it goes down here in C tier, in the tier, because you should just play a completely different system that has been specifically made for this specific genre. So Gundam, Evangelion, all of those mech animes all go here into C tier. So now we have a very problematic anime. It has a lot of issues, but as a teenager, I thought this show was the coolest thing ever. This is Sword Art Online, or SAO. This anime is about people who put on cool VR headsets and go into a fantasy world and then all get trapped there. And if they try to take off the headset, or if they die in the game, they die in real life. And it was so cool to watch this show. And to be fair, even though there's a lot of problems with this specific anime, I think Sword Art Online actually goes up here into S tier because it would actually make for a banger anime premise. Just going to a fantasy world. You're actually a human, but you're actually playing as a D&D character and you're trying to escape and be just a regular human again. And I think that would be really, really cool. And if you die in the game, there's no revival or anything like that. You're just gone. And I think that could be sick. Moving away from like shonen and things like that, we are looking at this one, which is Apothecary Diaries. Apothecary Diaries is a very cute and refreshing anime about an apothecary who is brought into like this big dynasty and solves mysteries and heals people's ailments and things like that. I don't think this works as a D&D campaign, but I think maybe it could work with some more role-play heavy or an investigation heavy TTRPG, like maybe Call of Cthulhu or Vampire the Masquerade or something along those lines. I'm gonna put it here in C tier because it's a good show. I think it's a good premise. There's some really good, interesting political intrigue in there. I don't think it works in D&D because there's no superpowers, there's no fighting really, it's just puzzle solving and mysteries. Next up we have Hunter x Hunter, where the mangaka, whenever they get bored, they just change up the entire premise and sometimes even like the entire power system or magic system in the game. We have a whole season where people go into a virtual reality again, but it's like a card game reality thing. There's another segment where it's just like a big kind of classic tournament arc where they're climbing up different ranks in a tower and then they discover this whole other magic system. This is basically an ADHD DM's campaign, which isn't necessary, this doesn't make it bad necessarily. This is essentially just any campaign where the DM is constantly homebrewing new things, trying out new homebrews that they found on like Patreon or just somewhere on Reddit or something like that. Hunter x Hunter goes right here in the middle, B tier, for worth the effort because it's still a lot of fun and you have a lot of fun every time you watch the show or you play the game. Now, some of you are going to be angry about this one. This is that time I got reincarnated into a slime, which is very much set in like a fantasy RPG setting. But I hated the anime because it sucks ass. I just couldn't even get through the first like 3 episodes because it is just all exposition. This guy, I was very, very interesting for maybe the first 2 minutes where it's just a guy who eventually gets run over by a car or something like that, or gets stabbed, I can't remember, but he dies. And then he's reborn in a new fantasy world as a slime. But he hasn't really got any senses, and it's just like, I think there's a dragon in the cave with him who is explaining all of the mechanics of basically what is just a video game. It's like, if you eat this rock, you get this experience or whatever. And I thought it would explain everything in the first episode, but no, it continues into the second episode where they are just explaining all the rules of the world. I'm just going to put it in poo-poo tier. I thought it was a bad anime. I didn't watch past episode 3, but you know, the first few episodes were trash, and I expected that to be the premise for the whole thing. People are gonna be very angry, but he's in poo-poo tier. Probably should be up here in S tier, but maybe it's just gone so high in S tier that it's ended up back in poo-poo tier. But next, we are going to look at Ghibli. Pretty much every Ghibli movie at the moment. We're going more for the vibe of Ghibli movies and premises with this one, because I don't want to cover all the Ghibli movies. Maybe that should be its own video. Let me know in the comments if you want that to be its own video, how we would cover every Ghibli movie as a D&D campaign. But more or less, in the end of the day, for a Ghibli campaign to work, you're gonna put in a bit of effort to make it work, but it's gonna be a good time. Check out Obejima. Obejima actually has a second Kickstarter out right now, which captures a Ghibli vibe very, very well. For anyone who doesn't know what a Ghibli movie is, a lot of people will compare it to like Japanese Disney, which is so wrong to do because there's so much more heart and love in Ghibli movies. They make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. They capture fear and darkness and evil. Evil is like also very gray in Ghibli movies. You don't have like good and bad. There's just so much depth to the stories, and they're all obviously animated beautifully. But there's always a little bit of magic, a little bit of fantasy in Ghibli. And overall, Ghibli is just a good, wholesome time. If you say, you know, this D&D campaign is going to have Ghibli vibes, I think everyone more or less will understand what that means. But it does probably mean there's a bit of homebrewing involved, especially if you're using Obejima, which can basically revamp all the rules of D&D. So I think here is where Ghibli should sit, because it's also quite varied. I've only watched a little bit of this anime. This is Black Clover, and I think Black Clover kind of sucks, but I've been told that it's really, really good, and it's got a really cool magic system. Basically, everyone's a wizard in this. This is like Naruto, but everyone's a wizard, I think. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Main character has no magic potential. Everyone else in the world is a mage of some sort. This person has been born with no magic, but then they kind of become like an anti-mage, and they kill people with their sword, their anti-magic sword, which has, surprise, surprise, an evil demon in it, which is a big premise for a lot of anime out there, a lot of shonen. Main character isn't very talented, but has some dark evil spirit in them that gives them an edge above everyone else. So this is Black Clover. There's a lot of shouting in it, lots of magic. I think though this would work very well in A tier, because you don't need to change too much to make Black Clover fit a D&D premise. All you basically have to do is say everyone is a mage, and then one character is maybe not a mage or something like that. Or there's an NPC who's going around killing mages. I think that could be very cool. Make the main character in your Black Clover games, make them the villain. Now, this anime just had a very cool movie that just released, and this is Demon Slayer. Really cool premise for an anime. I recently just released a video actually on Demon Slayer and how to turn your campaigns into a Demon Slayer campaign. I actually made a whole skill tree for different sword arts and stuff to buff martials and just add a bit of pizzazz to your combat encounters. So do check that out if you haven't. It should be up here, up in the top somewhere. I'll also link it down below. But yeah, Demon Slayer is basically kind of a really low magic setting. You've got the main characters who just use swords to take out demons. They don't have any real magical techniques or powers. They're not going to shoot laser beams or like tank explosions or anything like that. They have a few cool breathing techniques that give them an edge over the demons that they fight. Who are usually insanely overpowered, but because they're clever and they're desperate enough to survive, they will overcome most obstacles in Demon Slayer. I think Demon Slayer is a very high A tier. So we're gonna put it up here with Dragon Ball. Kind of close to S tier, but not quite. Still in A tier, I think, because you might need to do a little homebrewing. Just make a few little changes and be like, you can't be a spellcaster basically in your game. Everyone's gonna be a martial character, and that's pretty much the rules. But also you might have to have a rule in there too, where, you know, everyone's just gonna play a human. No one is going to be any other race in D&D other than a human, and everyone's gonna play as a fighter or a rogue or a monk, whatever. But yeah, that is Demon Slayer. God, there are so many of these. What are we on? What number are we on? We're on 20. We have 30 more to go, people. We're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna start banging through these. This is Cowboy Bebop. This is my favorite anime, one of my favorite animes of all time. We're gonna get to my favorite anime of all time because I've actually broken that one down into a bonus round. But Cowboy Bebop is pretty up there. However, I don't think it's like up in A or S tier. I think B tier suits Cowboy Bebop pretty well. Cowboy Bebop is a grungy sci-fi anime about bounty hunters who have a real cowboy aesthetic in the sci-fi world, and there's also jazz in there. So it's a combination of jazz, sci-fi, and cowboys, and it's really, really cool. And the mafia as well, obviously. The whole premise though is not really suited to D&D necessarily, but I think you could totally make it work and still have D&D classes. You'll just have to heavily homebrew it to get a cool bounty hunter, sci-fi, Cowboy Bebop campaign going. But I think it's really cool. And what I love about Cowboy Bebop is you can technically watch every episode in whatever order you want. They're kind of like mini movies, and so it's kind of like doing like a bunch of different one-shots, but still with the same characters and just progressing their story little by little. And I love it. If you haven't watched Cowboy Bebop, it is an amazing watch. The vibes are immaculate. And in the show as well, you very much have an established party. They're all very unique and they all have unique skills and abilities and things like that. So I would watch Cowboy Bebop. If you want to run a Cowboy Bebop campaign yourself or like some grungy sci-fi setting, I would recommend 5th Age. They have made it D&D into like a sci-fi setting. It's really, really cool. And I can't recommend it enough because I ran a whole campaign using those rules and it is peak. So I would go with that. Moving on then to one of the coolest animes, one of the most beautiful animes of all time is Frieren at World's End, which is just such a beautiful premise. It's set in your classic vanilla fantasy world. It is about an elf who has lived a very, very long time, has gone on many adventures with different party members and everything, but because they are so old, they don't really value the time that they have with people. You know, the 10 years they might spend in a party, in like a D&D party, will go by in like a blink of an eye and they don't really think much of it. And then when the party and adventure is over, they move on with their lives. But then this is all about someone who maybe has begun to regret not maybe cherishing the memories that they had with these beautiful people in their lives. So it's just a really cool anime about magic, about D&D parties basically, and friendship and all the good stuff. And I'm gonna put it right up here in S tier, like a glove. For Frieren, you don't need to do anything to D&D to make it work. Frieren is such a beautiful story and you draw so much inspiration from that anime. It is a must watch as well. We now have Bleach. This is about a guy who fights ghosts with a sword. Bleach goes up here in B tier. Essentially the biggest homebrewing that you have to do is that every person in the party needs to have like an artifact weapon that will level up as they do and kind of has maybe a bit of a personality. So you need to do quite a bit of homebrewing with everyone's unique magic weapons. But other than that, you can make it work. B tier. This is Steins Gate. We have Melted Banana here because a guy accidentally invents time travel in a modern day setting using his cell phone and microwave and testing some stuff on some bananas. This is a really cool anime, all about reliving kind of the same moments again and again. This one dude basically keeps going back in time, trying to fix things, but no one else remembers him when he goes back in time. He's the only one who retains the memories of everything that has happened. But I don't think this is a good premise for a campaign. It's too centralized about one guy. It's also a very modern day setting. There's no real combat in it. I don't think it works very well for any other TTRPG. I think you should just watch the anime if you want to get the best experience out of Steins Gate. So D tier for Steins Gate. However, that does not mean that time traveling does not work in Dungeons and Dragons. ReZero is a really good example of how to create a D&D campaign with like a time loop. This is basically a guy who gets isekai'd into a fantasy world. He has no powers or abilities. He thinks he's the main character because he has been isekai'd, but there's nothing special about this guy whatsoever. The only thing is, anytime he dies, he goes back to like his spawn point. So he goes back in time to when he first showed up in the world, and then later on he eventually gets like checkpoints as well in the world once he finally achieves something significant. But this guy is dying over and over and over again. I've actually made a campaign all about this exact premise, which you can check out up here somewhere, where it's set in kind of like a Ghibli-esque kind of town that is under the influence of a time loop. So things are repeating again and again. And after running it, it was one of the best games I have ever run, but there was a lot of work that had to be put into it. So I'm gonna put it here in B tier. We're kind of running out of space here. We're fine. But yes, ReZero, really, really fun, worth the effort. And I've done most of the heavy lifting for you if you wanna check out that video somewhere over here. This is a tricky one to figure out because I didn't know this was the symbol for the academy in My Hero Academia. But yeah, UA makes sense now that I see it. But I didn't know it when I was looking at references and symbols for different anime. But My Hero Academia is going to go right here in C tier. We're gonna put it right there because My Hero Academia is kind of better off in like, was it Monsters and Mutants or whatever the superhero TTRPG is. You know, you could totally make it work for D&D if you wanted, but I think it works better as a one-shot. But any of that superhero-y thing, just where you have like one niche power, doesn't really translate super well to D&D. But is kind of cool. You could make it work, but it's a lot of effort and you might as well just play a different system. Fairy Tail growing up for me was one of the coolest mangas ever. This is like one of the, like after Naruto, this was like the next biggest manga I got really, really into. I haven't really watched the anime all that much. I watched it a bit when I was younger and I was quite disappointed. Fairy Tail is kind of cool. I mean, like it's very mid though. There's nothing special about Fairy Tail whatsoever. It is about mages who do different random jobs for a guild, but they're not kind of mages either. You could kind of just be any D&D class in a Fairy Tail campaign and you could just say you're a mage. You know, there's a lot of variety when it comes to mages in Fairy Tail, which is why Fairy Tail pretty much goes right up here. It is an S tier campaign because you don't need to change D&D whatsoever. You are just going to your guild hall, you're doing quests for your guild, and that's kind of it. That's just D&D in a nutshell, really. So Fairy Tail up here in S tier. Yu Yu Hakusho, kind of an older one if you're a younger audience member out there. I've never watched it. I've tried to get into it. Basically, I think the premise is guy dies, goes through many tournament arcs and fights people in the underworld or the afterlife or something like that. And I think it's kind of cool. I think it could totally work as a campaign. You just need to do a lot of work in terms of like 1v1 or 2v2 kind of like fights. Basically, this whole anime is a big fighting anime where you're just doing tournaments. I think I might be completely wrong there, but I am working with another fellow YouTuber. I'm not going to say anything right now because we don't know when the video is going to come out, but we are going to be working on making some homebrew rules for making tournament arcs in D&D work. So it will take a lot of effort, but it can definitely work here in B tier. Next up, we have Hellsing. Hellsing is a vampire anime about a very super overpowered vampire called Hellsing. Is he called Hellsing? I can't remember. I have only watched some of the show. My fiance is super into Hellsing, but at that stage, you might as well just be playing Vampire Masquerade. So right here in C tier. When I was younger, maybe between the ages of 10 and 11, the whole idea of like an RPG world blew my mind. I never knew that was a whole concept. I never knew that was a thing that existed with video games. So when I discovered Dot Hack was, I read it as a manga originally. I was like, oh my God. My family and I we were traveling around the world for about 7 months at the time. I was 10 or 9. I was 9. And I discovered in a shop a Dot Hack manga and I got the 4 books of the manga. And it was the coolest thing ever. Later, I got the like novels of it as well. But basically the premise of Dot Hack is kind of like a fantasy online virtual reality game. And I think in the original anime, I can't remember the name of the anime, but I'll put it up here on screen. They get stuck in it very much like Sword Art Online. And if you died in the game, you would be comatose in real life. And so I think Dot Hack is kind of S tier because very much like SAO, it would be such a banger premise that if you are stuck in a game, you gotta get out, you get comatose, and this is super cool. I just think it works. I think this is a good time. Dot Hack up here because it's cool. Gurren Lagann, another one of my top favorite animes of all time. Sadly, is gonna go way down here in C tier because it is a mech anime, so just play Lancer. This is a weird symbol for this next one. This is one of my favorite animes as well, or this is actually an anime I would show to people who hadn't watched anime and didn't really like the whole premise of like, you know, Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, the kind of loud, shouty fighting kind of stuff. This is Death Parade. And this is such a cool premise for a show. The idea is that you have this one dude who judges souls and decides if they should go to hell or heaven. Usually 2 souls come into like his cool, classy underworld bar, and they just think it's a normal bar. They have all their memories kind of erased of what has happened to them, and they just think they're showing up in a bar. And in this place, slowly things begin to unravel as they play some everyday game with him. So in the first episode, they play darts, and it's a couple, and you later find out that this couple has died tragically in a car accident. And on this dartboard, they have different body parts of their partners, and whenever they hit one of the body parts, the other partner feels pain in that body part. I won't tell you too much about this thing. I'm just basically, I put this here because I just want you guys to watch Death Braid because I think it's really, really cool. It's only 12 episodes, but unfortunately it doesn't work as a D&D premise or a TTRPG premise at all. Just watch the anime. It goes down here in D tier. Cardcaptor Sakura. I used to watch this at 6 a.m. when I'd wake up just before school. I loved Cardcaptor Sakura as a kid. The whole premise is kind of like a Pokemon-y thing. She's going around collecting cards with kind of these elemental spirits inside. And then once she captures one of them, she can kind of use them to fight against the other spirits that are rogue. But all the spirits have such cool powers and abilities. And there are these unique puzzles. Like there's this one where this one spirit is inhabiting like a painting in a gallery. And she's got to break into the gallery at night. And if she makes any noise, I think, she's sent right back outside the gallery. So she needs to find out how to get into the gallery and fight the spirit and capture it without making any noise or any sound or anything like that. So there's loads of really cool potential here for D&D campaign. So I'm actually going to put it up. I'm going to put in worth the effort because there is a lot of homebrewing you need to do, but not as much as you would need to do for Pokemon. You're just kind of like basically gaining new powers and abilities every time you capture a spirit. So basically every time you level up, you've captured a spirit and you add that power and ability to your repertoire. My Classless skill tree would work really, really well for a Cardcaptor Sakura campaign. That's right, I've made a whole Classless skill tree system. It's got a roleplay skill tree, it's got a combat skill tree, and it's got a crafting skill tree. You can leave out any one of those three, but they're the core pillars of my Classless system that I've invented for D&D. If you want to check it out, I'll link videos to it in the description. This symbol, probably no one really knows unless you're a super cool hardcore anime fan like me, but this is Fuliculi, or FLCL, which is one of the wildest and edgiest and just coolest things to watch. I have no idea what the magic system or the power system were. To be fair, I don't know what is happening in this anime half the time. This anime is just vibes, so just watch it. It's going in D tier. You need to watch Fuliculi if you've never heard of it. This next one doesn't deserve any artwork because it sucks ass. This is Record of Ragnarok, which was such a disappointing show when I turned it on. There's no animation in this. This is just still images with text over it. I have no idea what's really going on. It's a big tournament with all these gods. The premise is really cool. The premise is that all these different gods and like champions and demigods throughout history and different ages and mythologies and stuff are all just fighting each other and beating the shit out of each other and seeing who wins. But it's executed so poorly as a show. I'm sure the manga is cool, but we're looking at anime here, and just because I think that it sucks, it go down here in Poopy tier. Down here in Poopy tier, where it belongs. Gachiakuta is next, and I think I've pronounced that right. I might have butchered it, but Gachiakuta is basically Trash World. There's a really nice world up in the skies where everything is clean and pristine and there's a nice government and everything else. But then down below, they throw all their trash down to the ground level. It's kind of like Final Fantasy VII in that kind of way. You down below, under this city in the sky, you've got a trash world. Everyone throws away these items, and these people have like the power to bring out the memories of an item that used to be loved and turn it into a cool weapon. So, and then there's one guy who can kind of do that with every item. Usually people have one item, one magic item that they attack people with and fight people with, and has a cool transformation ability. And I think this goes in A tier because this is such a banger premise. The characters make sense, the world makes sense, it could work so well in D&D. And you just need to give people magic items or make them artificers. And it should go here in A tier because it's such a banger show. Next up, play the music. Play the cool anime clip. This is Devilman, and I'm specifically going with Devilman Crybaby, which is dark. It's about a guy who kind of gains the abilities to turn into a devil, and it doesn't have a nice ending. This is not a good time, this is a sad time, but it doesn't really work in D&D so much unless you super homebrew it. But if you want to go for a really, really sad kind of campaign or one-shot or series of small one-shots, you could kind of maybe make it work. But I think ideally the system that this would actually work really well with is for Vampire the Masquerade or any of the other TTRPGs in that series, in the, was it the Dark World or something like that, the Evil Universe. I don't know what the actual series is of all of the different Vampire Masquerade games, like Werewolf and Hunters and all these other ones. I'm not super familiar with Vampire Masquerade, but I feel like that kind of game system works really well for Devilman Crybaby. So right here is gonna go in C tier. This next one is arguably not an anime. Is an anime? It's not really an anime because it wasn't made in Japan. But this is Avatar, just the whole Avatar world, the Avatar universe. Avatar, The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, all of those. If you don't know them, they're the coolest thing ever. You need to watch them. You can bend elements, control water, air, earth, or fire, and one person has the ability to control all of them. So basically, you're just playing spellcasters or you're playing elemental monks in this campaign. Really cool world, really cool character. You've got the perfect like party and everything going on. Up here, you don't even have to be a spellcaster. You could be like Sokka and just throw boomerangs. Up here in A tier though is where Avatar belongs. That should actually be this way. No. Next up we have Mob Psycho 100, which again very much is made by the same person who made One Punch Man. Instead of a guy just being able to kill people in one punch, this is about a psychic kid who's just super overpowered and stronger than all the other psychics in the world. And this guy, he's kind of like a fun mascot. He's called Dimple. I was gonna say Nipple. It's not Nipple, it's Dimple. His name is Dimple. I don't know what his Japanese name is. I only can watch the English. But it's a very fun premise. It's really lighthearted, but it's also got a lot of emotional depth. Much more depth than One Punch Man, which is why I'm putting it just a bit above One Punch Man in B tier. So we're coming really near the end. We're gonna get to the big heavy hitters that I know you're waiting for, like Naruto and Jujutsu Kaisen. We'll get to those. Those are waiting here. But first, we're gonna talk about my favorite anime of all time. This is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is the first season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has many seasons that go through the different generations of the Joestar family, and they all have wild wacky adventures, and a lot of them are very different premises. The very first two is all about fighting vampires. The other ones are about using stands, which are kind of like spectral beings that come out of your body and all have unique superpower kind of things. But we're gonna go through all of them one by one. We're gonna start with Phantom Blood, the very first season of JoJo, which is arguably probably the worst one, but you kind of want to watch it because it kind of gets you into the show. But if you want to get into JoJo, I actually recommend watching Diamond is Unbreakable as the very first season, because the way I see it is that if you want to introduce someone to, say, Batman, you don't tell them to watch the very first or read the very first Batman manga. You'll go and recommend like The Dark Knight or something like that. Something that has come down later down the line where they have really perfected the show and everything else, the vibe. But I didn't go by that rule. It's not a great time anyway. Phantom Blood is a strange one. The whole premise is that you have a big butch dude called, what's his name again? I forget all the Joestar names. This is Jonathan Joestar. He's the very first Joestar. It's called JoJo because it's like Jonathan Joestar. So you can shorten it down to JoJo. He has an adopted brother called Dio.
You thought your first kiss would be JoJo, but it was I, Dio!
Who eventually becomes a vampire and he's super overpowered. And so he learns how to channel sunlight in his fists and kill vampires. And he goes on a big vampire hunting adventure and it's a great time. I actually think the very first season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, actually goes up here in S tier. Because in the end of the day, you're just playing Curse of Strahd. This is just the Curse of Strahd campaign. So I don't think you need to change anything about D&D campaign, your D&D campaign, to make Phantom Blood work. You just need to change Strahd's name to Dio and you have a JoJo campaign adventure. So next up then we have JoJo's season 2. Technically this is kind of just part 2 of season 1, but I say it's season 2 because it's got a different Joestar. It's kind of got a different story. This is Battle Tendency. This is one of the descendants, I think the grandchild of Jonathan. This is Joseph Joestar. And he does the same thing. He goes on a training montage in Italy And the reason I've got this symbol here, this is Caesar's headband. He's a very prominent character, and they're kind of like two cool guys training and learning how to use Hamon, which is the kind of like sunlight fighting technique to fight not just vampires, but super roided vampires who are kind of like demigod characters who are still allergic to sunlight. Because this is a little more specific and it only has like a party of like 2 people and everything else, there's probably a lot more homebrewing you need to do to make this work. So I'm actually going to put it down a step and put it in A tier. I think it's the hype tier for sure. It'd be a really cool premise, but it plays out a little differently. And also the time is more modern, so you need to do a little bit of shifting around, but not much to make it work. Season 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures is Stardust Crusaders, and it follows the main protagonist, Jotaro Kyujo. And this is where the concept of stands comes into play. These are the physical embodiments of your fighting spirit. And this main guy, he's so badass, is very much a D&D party. You have all these people who are going after, I won't tell you for spoilers, but there's a big evil bad guy who's got also a really powerful stand. And they're going to Egypt to try to find him. And it's a big world traveling campaign. It's very much a campaign where you're just going from place to place, trying to find this big evil bad guy. The main reason I am putting it though in B tier is how stands work. They're a bit strange, and so I'm putting it in B tier because stands are a tricky one. I have made homebrew classes for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and a few other people who I'll link down below have also made JoJo Bizarre Adventure stands. You can make certain classes work, like warlocks, and like an Echo Knight and things like that, or like the Astral Monk. There's a few things that can make spectral versions of people who fight for you that could totally make this work with just regular classes, but it's just one that you want to homebrew quite a bit. So I'm going to put it down in B tier. This is the 4th season, the one I recommend you actually watch out of JoJo, and this is called Diamond is Unbreakable. And these are the 2 pins of the main character who, it very much sums him up. He has like healing stand kind of. He can put things back together, so he can basically repair bodies and things like that. But he can't heal himself, so he's a very peaceful pacifist kind of guy, but if you insult his hair, he'll beat the crap out of you. And he uses his stand in such cool ways. Everyone has really interesting and unique stands in this one, but because they're so unique and less generic than they are in Stardust Crusaders, where you just have a sword fighting stand who's really quick and you just have a guy who's really fast at punching. This one, they are very, very specific powers. So I'm actually gonna have to put this into C tier, where you're gonna have to do some serious homebrewing, but even then I think you're better off going with a completely different system to make this specific season of JoJo work. And now we are going even lower with the 5th season of JoJo, Golden Wind. We're going right down here with D tier, where you should just watch the anime. And even then, the anime is kind of questionable. I think it's super cool. There's some really cool things in this JoJo season. It's all set in Italy, and you've got your boys going out and going on an adventure. It is super cool, but the powers in this are so bullshitty. They just do whatever they need them to do in whatever situation. They kind of just, it really feels like they are just making up what their powers do as they go. So I'm putting this down here in D tier, just watch it, it's an experience. Before my camera runs out of power, we're gonna go to the final season that is currently an anime. We have another one coming very soon. I'm very excited, Speedball Run, and that will probably be way up here in the higher ones, but this one is gonna be pretty high. This is Stone Ocean, and this whole premise is set kind of in a prison, women's prison, where they're just trying to break out and stop this evil priest and stuff who can take CDs out of your head. It's very weird. It's a very weird one, but it's also very fun, and I think pretty much could work very well, especially the premise and the main story could work very well in D&D. So up here in A tier. So we're gonna wrap things up with the biggest animes, the big animes that you want me to cover, the big heavy hitters that you've all been waiting for. So we're gonna start off strong, and we're gonna start with Naruto. So Naruto is about ninjas. It's mainly about a kid called Naruto. Whoa, amazing. He has a giant fox demon inside of him that he can kind of call upon to do cool things. So in this anime, about ninjas, they all use a magic resource called chakra. Jeez, it took me so long to get that. But chakra basically allows you to do cool jutsus and cast spells, essentially. Naruto essentially has like a bottomless well of chakra with the evil demon inside of him. Again, very typical shonen premise is to have a guy who's got a demon inside of him that makes him kind of unique and special to everyone else. In the end of the day, he's found ninjas in a big fantasy world, fighting each other and making cool spells, and it's a big battle anime. So Naruto is going to go in A tier because it just makes sense. There's very little you have to change to make Naruto actually work for D&D. You've got spellcasters, you got marshals, all of those in there. You just kind of re-flavor casting spells and using abilities as using taijutsus or ninjutsus or genjutsus and things like that. Charm spells are genjutsus. Genjutsus are basically like mind powers that like lock you in weird illusions and things. Taijutsu is just martial arts. It's just punching someone. And then ninjutsus are super magical powers like shooting fireball out of your hands and stuff. And that is that. So actually, while recording this, it came to my attention on Patreon that I didn't actually cover Attack on Titan. So I made a special card for Attack on Titan. Shout out to my patrons, by the way, who making these videos possible. And a very special shout out goes to my hero goblins, Bridge on the Lake, Tom WDW, Xander Brooks, Wither King, and Sam Lake. Thank you all so much. Your wonderful hero goblins are on display here. And if you want to become a hero goblin too, you can have your little animated goblin appear on every one of my videos. But thank you also to my Giga Chads, to my fancy goblins, and to my pajama goblins. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Kickstarter. Genuinely, you really, truly mean the world to me. So I really do mean that. Thank you. It is so much fun making fun homebrews of the month over there for you. Every single month, I have so much fun with you all. Thank you all for your support. Now, going back to Attack on Titan, where this will go, actually, I haven't planned out, but I'm pretty sure Attack on Titan kind of goes in S tier, and I'll tell you why. Because Attack on Titan, the whole premise is it's a world filled with titans, these giant humanoid freaky ass people who go in and eat people. And the world that we know is locked within all of these walls, and it's kind of like a 1800s kind of technology fantasy era, but it just works perfectly for D&D. You know what? I'm actually gonna move it down from S tier. I'm gonna move it to A, just because you do have to kind of limit the classes people play. No one's going to be able to play a magical like spellcaster in this world. So because there's a few changes that you need to bring into it, I'm going to bring you down here to hype tier. So actually we've changed it. Next up on our big hitters, this is Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is about demons. These people hunt demons and spirits and nasty creatures. And there's a guy who can turn into a half chainsaw, half man kind of creature. And this is a cute guy who allows him to do that. He kind of like embodies this little guy's powers at one point. But this anime is quite specific. The powers and abilities are very particular, and it's in a modern day setting. There's no like classic classes and things. People do have very interesting powers, but I don't think it really fits the vibe here. But again, I think this is an anime that would very much fit possibly Vampire the Masquerade. So we're gonna put it down in C tier over here. We're nearly finished. We have 3 left. We're gonna go with one of my favorites as well, another one of my big favorites. This is Berserk. For anyone who doesn't know, Berserk is a very dark, gritty fantasy about a guy with a massive sword who just fights monsters, and it's really freaking cool. He's kind of in like an army, a medieval army at one point, and then he goes off and does stuff solo, and he takes out all these demons and stuff, but then builds up this other whole party. There's very much the capabilities within that story to have a party as well. It's not just him on his own all the time. He is with a lot of other friends who all have very unique powers and abilities. We have wizards and witches. We have cool kind of roguish characters. There's so much potential for Berserk, a Berserk campaign. It is very dark and very heavy. So the only thing you would need is maybe a consent form for all your players before you send them through the hell. But Berserk is up here, top of the list up here in S rank. And one thing you might notice, I'm not like organizing these in like order necessarily, it's just S rank. There's not like, just because Dungeon Meshi is over here doesn't mean it's the best one. These are just the order I'm putting them all up in, okay? So next one, we have Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist is about alchemists. They have the ability to create basically anything so long as they have the correct materials. So they could make a spear as long as there's like iron or something in the ground. And they typically, it says they need to have these special magic circles and things like that, but pretty much every character in this series has like built-in circles in their bodies anyway. So pretty much everyone, it is like normal spellcasting in D&D. You need spellcasting components. You need to make the hand signs. You need verbal things. A Full Metal Alchemist just works perfectly, I think, in a regular D&D setting. So I'm just gonna put that right up there beside Berserk in S tier. And then finally, my most popular video on the channel was one where I made rules and mechanics for domain expansions or for cursed packs in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. And I think it's only fitting that Jujutsu Kaisen should go up in A tier. It should go in A tier. It's not quite S tier. You do need to do a lot of home brewing to make it work, but it's not in B tier because I've already done all the heavy lifting that you need to do to make Jujutsu Kaisen an A tier campaign. It's very easy to do. Just check out that video. It's somewhere on here on the screen and linked in the description below. But Jujutsu Kaisen, for anyone who doesn't know, is people who use bad vibes as their superpowers to destroy other bad vibes. That's it, kind of in a nutshell. Again, the main character here has an evil demon in him, which gives him kind of more unique powers than everyone else. Which is the premise for Jujutsu Kaisen. It's the premise for Fairy Tail, kind of, to some degree. He's also special. He's got dragon powers. Let me see how many of these we can actually point out with that same typical trope. Dan, he also has an evil demon in him. We have Black Clover has an evil demon in him. What else? We have, not Digimon, Bleach has an evil demon in him as well, very much prominent later in the shows. I kind of think ReZero, maybe he's got darkness in him anyway, and he's also very much he's got unique powers. Mom Psycho struggles with emotional problems. We have Devilman is just all about having a demon in him. He is literally a devil man. We have Chainsaw Man, also same premise. He has a demon inside him with devil blades. We also have Fulikulu, kind of. He's got a robot in it, demon kind of in him. And Yu-Gi-Oh has a demon pharaoh kind of in him. And yeah, this is my tier list. Let me know if you would do anything differently. I'm pretty sure everyone is very upset with this lovely tier list. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, check out my other videos where I talk about how to turn all of these into D&D mechanics. Also, wait. Also, check out my Kickstarter. It's live right now. Links are in the description. Is a cookbook. It turns their whole D&D campaign into Dungeon Meshi, which is one of the best animes of all time. Check it out. It also really supports me. It would mean the world to me if you could support this. This is my very first Kickstarter ever. Okay, bye.